My manager said, "You're too quiet. That's why you're replaceable." So I stayed quiet until I was offered a job by a competitor and took all our vendor contracts with me. When she found out, she stormed into my exit interview. I just said, "I hope you're loud enough to explain this to legal." Then I shut the door on her and her career. I don't think Dana ever learned how to be quiet. She talked over people, interrupted every meeting, filled silence like it was a threat. And for a while, that worked for her. People assumed confidence meant competence. But I was the one staying late to fix her mistakes. I was the one redlining contracts she hadn't even read. I was the one getting panic messages from vendors who couldn't reach her during critical deadlines. But she was the one getting promoted. I started in that department when I was 26. I was just looking for something stable after getting laid off during a merger. I didn't come in with big ambition. I just wanted to be useful. I worked hard, stayed quiet, and took pride in being the person people could count on. I didn't play office politics. I didn't care who got credit. At least, not at first. In the beginning, Dana acted friendly. But it was all surface level. She was sharp in a performative way, loud in meetings, constantly name-dropping, always using buzzwords she didn't seem to fully understand. I thought if I just worked hard and made her look good, I'd be safe. But the longer I stayed, the more I saw how transactional she was. When she realized I wasn't going to challenge her, she leaned into it, started bringing me into meetings just to take notes. Would say things like, "Can you just follow up on this after?" Or, "You're better at the details." I became invisible by design. My work was visible. I wasn't. She'd forward my emails to leadership without my name on them. She'd repackage my project timelines and present them as her own. At first I thought I was imagining it, but then one day, she took a full presentation I made, slides, data, visuals, and showed it to our VP without changing a single thing except the title slide. She said, "I threw this together over the weekend." I sat there in that meeting like a ghost. Not even introduced. Just another face at the table. I went home that night and opened a private Google Drive. Started saving everything. Just in case. Still, I didn't plan anything. I didn't want drama. I just needed proof that I existed. That I'd done something real. But over time, the resentment started to build. Because every time I made something more efficient, she took credit. Every vendor I fixed a relationship with, she bragged about to leadership. She'd say things like, "They love working with us now." But the truth was they avoided her when they could. I was the one staying up until midnight to get contracts finalized. I was the one they texted when a shipment got delayed or a payment issue came up. And she'd be off at some conference posting selfies with hashtags about women in leadership. I kept my head down. But that review changed something. We were sitting in a small, windowless room. She looked bored. I'd submitted a self-evaluation, carefully outlining my accomplishments, thinking maybe this time I'd get some recognition. I wrote about the savings I'd negotiated, the vendors I'd onboard, the 5 a.m. call I took with a supplier overseas that saved us from a major delay. She didn't even read it, just flipped through it and said, "You do good work, but you're too quiet. That's why you're not moving up. You're replaceable." I just sat there. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because in that moment, I realized I was done. The message from the competitor came 2 days later. I think the timing was fate, or maybe just the result of years of quiet, invisible work finally rippling out. A manager from a rival firm reached out on LinkedIn. Said they were looking for someone to lead vendor relations. Someone who actually understood the operations side, not just the strategy. We had a video call. Then another. They asked specific questions. They'd done their homework. I gave them examples, numbers, problems I'd solved. After the third call, the hiring lead asked me plainly, "If you come here, would those vendors follow you?" I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. So I reached out. Carefully. Quietly. I never made promises. But I let people know I was exploring opportunities. I asked what their priorities were moving forward, what would make their lives easier, what kind of working relationship they actually wanted. And again, I heard the same thing. "We trust you. Let us know where you go." Some of them were blunt. One said, If you leave, we're out. She's impossible to deal with. Another laughed when I said I might be moving and replied, honestly, I thought you already had. You're the only reason we stayed this long. That's when I knew. I didn't rush it. I waited until every contract Dana had ignored or delayed was coming up for renewal. I organized my files, made sure every handoff note I left was technically complete, but deliberately bare bones. I gave my 2 weeks with a short email. No emotion. No big farewell. She didn't say anything. Not until the first vendor canceled. Then another. Then one more sent an official notice that they were following me to the new firm and ending their relationship with Dana's company effective immediately. That's when things started spiraling. By the time I walked into my exit interview, I'd already signed my new contract. I'd already met my new team. My calendar was full for the next month with onboarding calls with the very same vendors Dana had lost. And then she came in, red-faced, hair a mess, clutching her phone like she was ready to throw it. She looked like she hadn't slept. You think this is funny? She snapped, before HR could even finish their greeting. You think sabotaging us is some kind of win? I just looked at her, because there was nothing left to say. She kept ranting, listing off contracts, throwing out numbers, blaming me for things that had nothing to do with me. That's when I said it. I hope you're loud enough to explain this to legal. The room went dead silent. Then I stood up, calmly collected my folder, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to, because the sound of her career collapsing would be louder than anything I ever said. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It came in waves. 3 days after I left, I got a message from one of my old coworkers. Just a short text. **T's on fire over here. Then another one a week later. She screamed at the finance team today. Said they let you steal everything. I ignored most of it. I was focused on onboarding, meeting the new team, getting my footing. My new company gave me space to lead, not just execute. I was in charge of the entire vendor pipeline. They wanted things done right, not just loud. And for the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. But the updates from the old place kept coming. Apparently, after I left, Dana tried to bluff. Told leadership she had everything under control. She blamed my exit on lack of ambition. Said I wasn't a team player. Tried to downplay the vendor loss as natural turnover. But then procurement sent a report. 6 contracts gone. 3 more pending cancellation. And the worst one? A multi-year agreement worth over $800,000 that collapsed after I left. It was in final renewal stages before I quit. I'd done all the work. All Dana had to do was sign and send it. She never followed up. And when they reached out, she ignored them for 2 weeks. So they walked straight into my inbox at the new job. I didn't chase them. They came to me. By month 2, I'd pulled 8 of the company's key vendors to my new firm. Not because I asked them to switch, but because they were tired of Dana. Tired of her delays, her ego, her lack of follow-through. One even said, "We were staying out of loyalty to you. You're gone. So are we." Dana tried to push back. She sent cease and desist letters. Claimed I was violating non-compete. Claimed I stole proprietary information. I didn't panic. I knew the contracts. I knew the law. More importantly, I knew exactly what I hadn't done. Every vendor had ended their relationship by choice. No promises. No leaks. Just years of goodwill that weren't tied to the company, they were tied to me. The company's legal team reviewed everything. Quietly. Thoroughly. HR was pulled into it. So was compliance. What they found wasn't theft. It was negligence. On her part. Missed deadlines. Unapproved changes. Improper filing. Forwarded confidential emails sent to external addresses. Suddenly, Dana wasn't talking so loud anymore. Then the audit happened. Apparently, one of the vendors flagged a billing error, which led to a deeper dive. They found duplicate charges, unused services being paid for, misreported savings. She'd been cooking the books, not in a criminal way, but in a pad the numbers to look good way. Inflating results, reporting early wins that hadn't materialized, And all the documentation that could have disproved her claims had been in my folders, the ones she never bothered to read. Now they were gone, because I took only what belonged to me. The rest? She never backed it up. The new head of operations at my old job reached out to me through LinkedIn, not officially, just to talk. Said something like, "You handled your exit with more integrity than most people handle their entire career." Just wanted to say that.
I didn't respond.
Because the truth was, I wasn't done feeling angry. Not just at Dana, but at myself for letting it go on so long. I thought being quiet meant I was being professional. I thought not speaking up made me smart. I thought letting her take credit was harmless if the work still got done. But I was wrong. She used my silence to build her own name, and then tried to erase mine when I no longer served her. And even now, as I settled into my new role, I couldn't stop thinking, what would have happened if I'd just kept my head down? How many other people had she done this to? Then I found out something else. The HR rep who sat in my exit interview, she quit. Quietly. 2 weeks after I left. She'd been documenting Dana for months. And she wasn't the only one. When I heard the HR rep had quit, I didn't think much of it. People left all the time. But then I got a message, personal, not through LinkedIn, not through email. A phone number I didn't recognize. It was her. The message just said, "I'm sorry I didn't speak up when I should have." I wasn't the only one who saw it. That stuck with me. 3 days later, someone from accounting messaged me through a burner LinkedIn account. No name, just initials. They said there had been internal whisperings about Dana for months before I left. People had flagged her for skipping approval steps, submitting altered numbers, even trying to process renewals that were never negotiated. But no one acted. Not because they didn't care, but because she was close with a senior executive. A VP. Someone who protected her. They'd worked together at a previous company. There were rumors about them being involved personally, though no one had proof. What they did have were stories of contracts being approved without due diligence, of emergency spending that never got reviewed, of vendors being chosen not for value, but for connections. And I had touched all of it. Without knowing, I started replaying every project, every vendor, every deal I cleaned up that came to me half done or in crisis. How many of those were real mistakes, and how many were deliberate? One name came up in that message from accounting, a software vendor we dropped right before I left. They weren't a good fit. High prices, poor service, inconsistent delivery. I had recommended ending the contract. Dana fought me hard on it. Said we had to give them time. Pushed back, so often I had to loop in procurement to finally get approval. Now I knew why.
She was getting something from them.
Nothing provable, no direct payments, no trails, but suddenly it made sense. They weren't competitive, but they were loyal to her. And now that I'd taken the other vendors with me, she was exposed. She had no fallback. Then came the whistleblower complaint. It wasn't me. It wasn't HR. It was someone from her own team. A junior analyst. Barely out of college. They had screenshots, emails, meeting recordings. They submitted everything anonymously to compliance. And somehow, it ended up in my inbox. Not officially, of course. Someone from inside the old company sent it to me from a private account. Said they thought I should know that what I experienced wasn't isolated. That Dana had done this before. That she'd pushed out 2 employees before me. One with a quiet NDA, one who just disappeared without explanation. One of them had been working on vendor analytics. The other was trying to improve internal transparency. Both had been too difficult, according to Dana. That was her move. Discredit, isolate, remove. And I almost ended up like them. But here's where it got worse. I found out Dana was trying to follow me. She'd reached out to vendors I worked with at my new job, trying to poach them, or at least gather information. She was using her old playbook. Charm, pressure, bluff. It didn't work. One vendor told me straight up. She called us. Tried to act like nothing changed. I told her we only work with you now. Another forwarded me a message she'd sent. It was filled with lies. Saying I'd misrepresented my role, that I'd been let go for unethical conduct. She was trying to rewrite history, turn my quiet exit into a scandal. That was the moment I snapped. I'd stayed silent for so long. Even after everything, I hadn't said a word publicly. I hadn't called her out. I hadn't burned her name. But this? Trying to take me down even after she lost? I wasn't going to play nice anymore. After I saw that email where Dana lied about me, something shifted in me. For years I'd kept my head down, stayed out of office politics, avoided conflict. I told myself I didn't need credit, that being the bigger person mattered more than being seen. But that email was different. She wasn't just covering herself anymore. She was coming for me. And I was done being quiet. I didn't go public. I didn't write a post or blast her online. I didn't need to. I had proof. Years of files, emails, contract logs, notes, timestamps. Not stolen, just my own records of my work, the kind anyone would keep if they'd been constantly erased. I compiled everything into a clean, quiet package. And I sent it anonymously to her company's internal audit team, not just about the vendor relationships. I included the inconsistencies in her reports, the billing errors, the delayed responses, the ignored legal reviews, the approvals without backup documentation. I even flagged the conflict of interest with that overpriced vendor she kept trying to protect. I also included the lies she sent to my new vendors. That's where she crossed the legal line. Defamation. Attempting to harm a former employee's reputation with false claims. It didn't take long after that. A month passed. Then 6 weeks. I heard nothing. I thought maybe they buried it. Maybe her connections were still strong enough to protect her. But then, I got another anonymous message. Just 3 words. She's suspended. Pending. Then another one a week later. Investigation. Full scale. I found out through back channels that legal got involved. She tried to lie in her interviews, but everything she said kept contradicting the paper trail. The fake numbers, the conflicts of interest, the emails to vendors. She couldn't explain any of it. Especially the part where she tried to damage my reputation after I left. They found out she'd pushed at least 2 other employees out with false reports and manipulated HR to cover it. She even doctored a spreadsheet in one report to make her results look better. It wasn't a fireable offense on its own, but it added to the pattern. It showed intent. It showed who she really was. She was asked to resign quietly. But she refused. She thought they'd protect her like they always had. They didn't. 3 months after I walked out that door, Dana was fired. No public statements. No party. No goodbye.
Just gone.
And then it got worse for her. That overpriced vendor she protected? They were flagged too. Internal compliance discovered that one of their sales execs had been dating Dana. That's why she'd been pushing their contract. It wasn't about value, it was personal. When that surfaced, the vendor was blacklisted. She lost her inside support. They tried to spin it, but the damage was done. Her name? Blacklisted too. Nobody wanted to be associated with her. She tried to apply to other firms, even the one I was at. I found out from a recruiter who laughed when they saw her name. Didn't she try to sabotage you? They asked.
Yeah, she did.
So I told the recruiter everything. Calmly. Professionally. I didn't rant. I didn't exaggerate. I just told the truth. She didn't get an interview. I heard she's freelancing now. Low-tier contracts, nothing steady. Most of the vendors she used to rely on won't even respond to her. As for me, I got promoted after 6 months. My team grew. My name is finally on the reports. People come to me now for advice. I don't have to fight to be heard. I speak when it matters and people listen. But I still think about her sometimes. I think about that moment in the exit interview, when she screamed and tried to humiliate me. And I think about what I said. I hope you're loud enough to explain this to legal. Turns out she wasn't. And I never had to raise my voice.